I was a completely normal eater until the age of 14 when I became vegan.
Being vegan helped me to restrict more and more and more and more.
Hey, maybe I'll try going vegan. Maybe that'll help me lose weight.
I told everyone that it was this ethical argument and that I really wanted to save the planet and the animals.
Like in my head, vegan foods were skinny foods.
It was almost a way to mask my eating disorder.
I did go vegetarian in the middle of my eating disorder. I wasn't well when I chose to go vegetarian, and it provided an excuse.
I'm vegan, I don't eat that stuff.
Veganism seemed like a great solution.
And I was like, Mum, how have you managed to do that? I asked, and she said, well, I haven't done it intentionally. I've not been trying to lose weight intentionally. I've just adopted a plant-based vegan diet.
I thought I was doing everything right. I shopped at my local farmer's market, only bought organic food, I went vegan and sprouted my quinoa. I even bought nut butter that you had to stir with a spoon. I exercised every day, quit sugar, and eliminated gluten. I was the perfect image of health. But with every bite of food I took, I knew it was all a lie.
I was initially influenced to go vegan because for me it was almost a way to mask my eating disorder. You know, by having the label vegan, no one could really question why I was only eating like a bowl of vegetables for dinner. It was like, oh, she's just vegan, that's what she eats because that's what's available.
I became a vegan back in September 2017. Although I told everyone that it was this ethical argument and that I really wanted to save the planet and the animals, it was, I'd say, at least subconsciously, part of my eating disorder. I already followed a load of fitness, wellness bloggers. Slowly, a lot of them went vegan, and so I found myself consumed by this constant vegan messaging on Instagram.
Yeah, you'll slim down, it's all fine, it's all healthy, you'll do this naturally and you'll only eat plants and you'll save the planet in the process.
My mental state while I was vegan was pretty horrendous. I think the problem with anorexia is that it kind of shuts off the rational side of your brain. The vegan lifestyle that I'd adopted wasn't right for me. Then I was in denial about it for a long time, I think. And it wasn't until my parents kind of sat me down and were like, look, you've lost all this weight and we're worried about you.
And my parents obviously had some talks with me and said like, look, Olive, we're very concerned about you. You've dropped so much weight. You're not looking after yourself. So I made the conscious decision to start trying to eat a little bit more nutritionally dense food, but I was still very stubborn and I still wanted to stay vegan.
My eating disorder started really early and it became worse and worse during the years. I saw that a lot of people were saying that dairy were not good for humans, and I follow Facebook groups about this. I followed some channels, some website and everything, and I start having a relationship with people saying that all animal products were not good for us.
And it's this guilt tripping as well. It's sort of calling everyone who eats animal products murderers, and it's this real like shock to the system. You're like, oh, well, I don't want to be.
Veganism is a lifestyle, it's an ethical lifestyle. It didn't even cross my mind that it could be a problem.
And little by little, and being already in restriction, because I already had my restricting behavior, and looking at all these people saying that animal food were bad for us, for humans, I started seeking the same. My brain at this time was unnourished. I was not really able to focus on the truth and to have the strength of looking for the already the science behind this.
So I was vegan for over 6 years. I went vegan when I was 14 in May of 2016. I was a freshman in high school, and I'd been looking into going vegan since 7th and 8th grade, so I was like 12, 13 when I started researching it. I found veganism through What I Eat in a Day on YouTube. I was a young child trying to figure out what I should eat to lose weight, and the vegan videos looked the prettiest, so I was like, okay, let me click that. Also, I've talked before about how in elementary school I basically like developed a phobia of eating in front of people because I was afraid they would judge the food I ate, and like if I was eating something ugly, then like I would be ugly. So if I could eat fresh fruits and vegetables, ooh, I'm vegan, my vegan meal, suddenly I felt like I wouldn't be as self-conscious.
Veganism seemed like a great solution. Feeling like I was control, it really fueled this idea of like me being a good person. I was really obsessed with being a really good person and so obsessed with people pleasing and the idea of being good. And it was kind of like a relief, like, oh, as long as I'm vegan, then I don't have to worry anything. I don't have to question anything anymore. Like, that's it. That's just like me being a good person kind of thing.
Like in my head, vegan foods were skinny foods. So if I was seen eating skinny foods, then suddenly I was like, all my problems were solved. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just how my brain worked at the time.
Basically, as soon as I went vegan, I went straight into restricting. I knew that eating plant-based was lowering calories, so I started to lose weight quickly. A standard day of eating for me was like half a cup of buckwheat soaked with some coconut sugar, some dates and some berries, a few pieces of dried fruit, and then a small cooked dinner at home. And I started making dinner for all the family.
I was looking for my protein in the soybeans, in the lentils, in the organic rice, the full grain. I was becoming skinnier and skinnier, losing a lot of weight, eating a lot in terms of volume. I was eating tons of vegetables because I wanted to be full, to feel full. But it's not energy dense food. So it's a lot of volume, but very few calories. Being vegan helped me to restrict more and more and more and more.
I was following these crazy vegan people that were pushing high carb, low fat, raw till 4, 80, 10, 10, legitimately like pushing their young viewers to count their calories, make sure they weren't eating too many grams of fat every day. Their whole thing was like, you can eat as many carbs as you want, as long as you eat no fat, you'll never gain weight. So I was like, okay, I'm doing it. Also, a huge thing that veganism did was it gave me an excuse to starve myself. In public and in group settings, the deep, dark part of my brain loved having an excuse to say, oh, sorry, I can't eat that. Oh, sorry, I'm vegan, I can't eat that. So being able to use veganism as an excuse was a huge relief to me because I was like, okay, good, I don't have to eat in public, I don't have to eat in front of people.
When I was invited to visit my friends, to have dinner, to have lunch, to have a coffee or anything with them, I use my veganism as an excuse not to eat. Everything that was proposed to be eaten, I said, oh no, sorry, it's not vegan, I cannot eat. So being vegan helped me to not eat in social situation. It was always my excuse to restrict in society. Veganism and anorexia were the best friend in my life.
I just got skinnier and skinnier. And then I got to a point where I was like, I found out of someone who was promoting raw till 4, which I'm sure you've probably heard of. So like lots of fruit and then like a big cooked carbohydrate meal. And to me, like I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm getting really weak and I'm feeling like really close to losing it and like really binging out. So that seemed like an avenue where I could eat as much as I wanted and not put on weight.
I don't say that all vegans are anorexic, but I'm thinking that a lot of people that switch to veganism are having an eating disorder and a very bad relationship with food.
I had eating disordered behaviors in the past, probably around the ages of like 11 or 12. So that kind of got me. That might be one of the reasons why veganism was a bit appealing to me, especially being younger. Now I had the excuse, well, I don't really have to, I don't have to eat what people are preparing for me. Oh, I'm vegan. I don't eat that stuff. I don't eat meat. I don't eat dairy. It was a way that I could kind of, have my eating disorder mentality. First 2 years, I just kind of did a very standard kind of a vegan diet. Kind of started delving into more of like the high carb movement. So I was doing the bananas and dates and fruits in the morning and then doing all the starches at night.
But I was so wrapped in the idealism of this, like the fantasy of raw veganism and being pure and like being really light and vibrant. Got harder for me to concentrate and my digestion was not good, but I was still slim and that really mattered to me. Like I just wanted to be skinny.
All I'm thinking is, I get to eat all this food. It's, I was still losing tons of weight, which is really all I was kind of interested in. If I'm being totally honest, I wasn't honest about myself in the beginning, but I wanted to be as small as I possibly could.
I basically took what Tabitha Farah and psychologists like Shan Geisinger with the migration theory for anorexia are putting out and molded it into what I wanted to be, what I wanted to be true. I made my own kind of version of it in that sense that I wanted it to be vegan. And I wanted it to be possible, with me doing it in a very healthy, whole food, natural way.
Then I did a 57-day juice fast. I was kind of like this addiction of this idea of purity and like that my body is just full of toxins and like this will be the thing that like makes me feel good finally. And I began to binge. And it was like my body was like, finally, you're actually like eating enough. And I just would have periods of just going mad and then it came more and more regular. And I just felt so out of control.
I found myself needing to eat a lot of cheese and dairy. And that scared me a lot. I was scared, first of all, that I was brainwashed. I was scared that it was going to be really negatively affecting my health. I was also scared about what people were going to think about me. And I was terrified of the weight gain.
But then the fear of eating just anything and, my justification of I just want to be as ethical as I can be and am in my heart. So it just made that vegan kind of version out of it. And I thought in my mind, well, maybe it's also just enough to just eat enough. It's just about the calories. Just eat enough, get in the calories.
So I'm putting on all this weight, but I'm losing my mind. I was still calling myself a vegan. I was still following the vegan diet, following like the vegan protocol. But I was having like these really regular binges on foods that were not vegan, that I wouldn't tell people about. But I just felt like I couldn't stop eating them. Drinking tons of milk. I had a huge craving for egg. Just anything that was really caloric, really fatty, whole jars of peanut butter.
The thing is, when you're vegan and eating a lot of whole foods and a lot of healthy, natural foods, then it is very, very hard, if not, I would say even impossible, to get enough calories after you've been in an energy deficit. Believe me, I was a girl, I could eat. And I reached the Minimort guidelines, but the thing is, you cannot, I thought I can just go for my extreme hunger and just, eat more of these whole foods. But the thing is, you cannot eat enough calories in order to make up for the extreme hunger. Also, if you're very honest to myself, well, I can only speak for myself, but if I was very honest to myself at that point of time, what I really wanted was all of the things that I hadn't been eating for 8 years. Like all of the scariest things that my eating disorder could think of. And these happen to be non-vegan.
I'm at the point where I'm having these regular binges, purges, and it started getting really serious, like every day. It spiraled out into full-blown bulimia.
I did like the quote unquote Whole Foods plant-based versions, like no junk food, no fake vegan anything. So it was always like lean quinoa, lentils, kale, fruits, vegetables, always that, nuts, seeds. If I would eat an egg and then I would like punish myself by, you know, like never eating an egg or like any animal products ever. So it wasn't like strict veganism, but it was strict enough where it almost took my life. And you know, going to like an anorexia unit was horrible and all that stuff. So
you weren't intentionally anorexic, your body was just devoid of nutrients.
Exactly. Like I went into that unit thinking like, look, I'm not trying to make myself skinny. I mean, I lost my mind by that point anyway, so it didn't matter what I said. Wow. I didn't see a fat guy, but I didn't see a really skinny guy either, like frail. Wow. Like my endocrinologist told me like, Frank, you look like you're from a concentration camp. And I was like, shut up. But looking back on it, I was like, oh, okay, maybe you were right.
I ate so much after my parasite experience where I had relapse because of the energy deficit. And that is what I came to understand here at that point of time, that had happened to me, and that the anorexia in my brain was purely activated due to the energy deficit.
But I didn't see a frail guy in the mirror, and I didn't care. Like I was just so mission purpose driven by, you know, veganism, saving the planet, saving our health, and I pushed that to the extreme and restricted at the same time. And I think just having the Lyme parasites in my body, you know, I think that's what really did it for me. Like just devouring like the carbs and sugars. I mean, they feed off of that. They feed off the sugars. And even though I was eating quote unquote, you know, good sugars from fruits and starches.
When I was 18, I was having candida. It was terrible, really bad systemic candida. I've been vegan for around 2 years back then already, and I'm obviously still vegan. Veganism is the way to go, don't get me wrong, has nothing to do with it. So I started restricting my calories, eating less. I was basically focusing on food. I even had an Anna blog. I started losing more and more weight. I don't know if I should say the numbers, if it's triggery to all of you, but I lost a lot of weight. The more weight I lost, the more depressed I got, and it got to a point where I was completely suicidal.
Whenever someone comes to me and they say, I have an eating disorder and I'm trying to be vegan and I keep on falling off the bandwagon and I'm struggling and I'm beating myself up, don't go vegan. Veganism can wait. Honestly, your health, your mental health is so much more important.
After like 2 years or something, I was still like dieting. I still had this diet mentality. I was like, you know, 1 teaspoon of peanut butter and only like this thick slice of bread. Like I would always think that in my mind, and I was still mental about food for like at least 2 years after being in a mental ward and everything.
And then I went vegan in my last year of uni, and that's when my recovery started, but it wasn't a straightforward recovery at all. So while the worst of my eating disorder was over, I adopted new habits. So I ditched one eating disorder for another essentially. I ended up developing orthorexia and becoming extremely obsessed around health and food. I prolonged my eating disorder because of going vegan at that time. And I think that if I could go back, I would tell myself, go to a therapist, don't do veganism right now, recover your relationship with food first, and then you can be vegan when you have a healthier relationship with food. And maybe you can do it 50% of the time, or you can do it when you're feeling comfortable around food, or you can do it when you feel like you have a choice, not because it's a rule. Because that's the thing, it's like it's another set of rules that can just become very blurry.
I grew up Catholic. Around the time where I graduated high school, looked into veganism, that I was also like working hard to become like the best Catholic that I could be.
But I'm basically fine now. So the only problems I have since then are digestive issues, and I also have osteopenia, which is a mild form of osteoporosis. If I fall, I am very prone to breaking parts of my body. I also have costochondritis, which is inflammation of the cartilage in my ribs, and that's also caused by that. So sometimes I can't breathe for like 3 or 4 days, and I have high fever and I can't move, and I'm just lying in bed and dying. So
well, I started binge eating big time when I was in hospital, when I was on the steroids. One Christmas I just ate so much food. I was having a shower and I thought I was really uncomfortable, and I thought I could spew this up. you know? Yeah, I'll feel better. So I spewed and I felt better. And I thought, cool, all those calories, now I don't have to feel bad about them. I didn't realize at the time, but when it really got bad was when I stopped doing the drugs after that first Vipassana, I started eating more. You know, that's what kind of happened. I replaced one drug, you know, with using food as a drug.
And the thing is, it's super important to eat the right things, which means plant-based foods. Grains, legumes, fruits, nuts, seeds, greens, vegetables, all those things, those are the things we need to eat, and not animal products. So no meat, no milk, no dairy, no eggs, no anything that comes from animals. We don't want to do that because it's bad for the animals. They want to live. It's bad for our bodies. We want to live. And it's bad for the environment because we want to live in this planet. So going vegan is like the first thing you should do.
The day I started my vow of silence for a year, that was a special thing. It was also the day that I went fully vegan. You know, before that, I would eat vegan and be vegan for a few weeks, and then because of my issues with eating, I would blow out and binge, and I didn't want to be. Like, I felt so bad for the dairy cows when I was eating ice cream, but I was addicted. So that's out of my vow of silence. It's the day that I said, that's it, no more blowouts, no more of that, I'm vegan now.
I don't have these issues with eating anymore because I eat what I want. I don't really think about it, but I still look in the mirror and find that difficult.
It's not related to what you eat, it's a state of mind. So at least the minimum is not eating foods that cause harm to the animals and the environment we live in. You can always recover on a plant-based diet.
My entire life revolves around health and nutrition and promoting a healthy lifestyle and obviously cooking like yummy vegan recipes. So my entire job revolves around eating food and filming it, and just anything that revolves around food and nutrition is my life. So coming from a past with an eating disorder, I don't know, like I look at things in such a different way, and a lot of the times I don't know if it's because I had an eating disorder in the past or it's because I've spent 4 years studying nutrition in college, or it's because my current job revolves around teaching nutrition to other people.
So the reason I'm making this video is because most of us in the West are eating animal foods and basing our body shape and body weight around eating animals. And animals don't deserve to die no matter what body shape we're trying to obtain, what weight we want.
I feel like I keep on going back and forth with what's right and what's wrong. I have these thoughts in my head, but I don't actively pursue it.
I already know people are going to look at the title of this video and say, well, you still have an eating disorder because you're a vegan, and being vegan is an eating disorder, right? No.
I was definitely too skinny for my liking. I was always the skinny kid, and I didn't like it even though I didn't want to eat more food. I just never felt like I was absorbing what I was eating.
A lot of us don't have those hunger cues that we rely on to maintain a healthy weight and eat and have a healthy lifestyle.
I remember stuffing food in, and even if I was completely full and satiated, you know, I'd have food up to here. I actually sometimes even had vomit like almost coming up, but I just kept stuffing it in because I don't know, I was bored and I just liked this full feeling. I kept eating junk and drinking alcohol. I just kept stuffing the food in no matter how bad I felt.
It started out as anorexia, and then it really got to be a problem when it sort of turned into bulimia. I started restricting my calories a little bit more. And then this was around the age that I found out about veganism. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a vegan now, and I would never, ever, ever say that veganism is any form of an eating disorder, but I first heard of it when my friend was telling me about her aunt who's a vegan. And I'm like, oh, what does that mean? What's vegan? And she told me it's when you don't eat any animals. Obviously you don't eat any meat, and I was already a vegetarian, so like that part was normal to me. I never really ate meat. And then I sort of used that as an excuse, so I wouldn't have to say, oh, I'm trying to lose weight, I'm trying to cut my calories. No, I could just say, oh, I can't have that, I'm a vegan. So I sort of used it like for selfish reasons to try to lose weight.
I get really confused sometimes when I'm filming what I eat in a day. I'll get some comments from people being like, you're showing so much unhealthy food, like you live such an unhealthy lifestyle. And then if I showed a video that's the complete opposite, like eating completely healthy, and then I'll get comments being like, you know, this isn't realistic, like you're not even eating enough calories, and I just feel like I can't do anything right.
Years later, we became more interested in health, we became vegetarian and later on vegan, and we also started doing fasting and colon cleansing. My new obsession was with getting clean, getting rid of all the disgusting food that I'd eaten in the past and cleaning myself out. So after the cleansers, my lowest weight was 38 kilograms, and this is what I looked like. After that point, my weight fluctuated up and down. I went from starving myself to binge eating. I had an orthorexic mentality that something like white rice was not healthy. So how did I turn this all around? Well, I found the high-carb, low-fat, vegan lifestyle, and this completely saved me. I now eat as much as I care for of whole plant foods.
Actively wanting to prove to my family, prove to my friends, prove to people online. Like I wanted to prove that this can be healthy. I think that ultimately helped me in the long run. It was going vegan and eating intuitively, ultimately, that helped me.
And I was introduced to intuitive eating about a year ago, and I was like, okay, this is cool, like just listen to my body. And I was doing it, but I wasn't really doing it. I was still finding a way to control it. I just realized that when I was introduced to intuitive eating, that I wasn't doing it properly. I was still trying to control it. And to realize that, and to actually understand that I never really let myself try intuitive eating, it just kind of blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, like you've been self-sabotaging for like 9-10 months since you've been introduced to this concept. I was not in a steady, healthy relationship with food. And I feel like a lot of my mental health issues root back to that. And so I was like, oh my God, I need to start just eating and giving myself permission to eat.
At first I stopped trying to eat, and then I found out through a TV show that there was this thing that girls did, that they would make themselves vomit. So I started doing that. Everything I would eat, I would make myself vomit. And then there were other times when I would just have these binges and I would eat everything. And I knew in my head that it was okay because I was gonna make myself vomit right afterward. So when I was about 16 or 17, it came back again, but in the form of anorexia. I thought again that I needed to lose weight, and what I would do was that I would not eat.
I was like anorexic for like a year, and then I recovered. But it was like the type of like bad where I was like 82 pounds, and I didn't get my period for like 9 months, almost a full year, that my development just like stopped. I quit veganism because I feel like, even though I started eating vegan because of ethical reasons, but incident where my stomach was really inflamed and I had to go to the hospital and all this stuff occurred because I was back to my binge and then binge restriction. Ever since I've given myself like full permission to eat whatever I want, I've noticed that there's been a variety of foods that I crave, so there's been like a balance.
My whole world revolved around food and what I was eating, and I would base my happiness on that. I would base my happiness on the number that I saw in the scale. I felt bloated. I felt that I still had to restrict myself in a way in order to have a thin body. And I would think to myself, I would say, seriously, like, does it really always have to be like this? Like, do I always have to think of what I eat and what I'm not gonna eat? So when I found the vegan and raw vegan diet, one of the reasons why I went to this diet was to not drink and not have this anxiety inside of my head. Another thing that I noticed was that I was losing weight without even trying. I was eating so much food and I was still losing weight. So I think that the vegan and raw vegan diet is the perfect diet for anyone who might be going through an eating disorder. Just try it out and you'll see that you don't have to be afraid to eat, that you can eat abundantly. You can fill your stomach with food and be fit and be healthy, because I'm eating the most nutritious foods on the planet and I feel strong and I have energy to do exercise, and I've finally gotten to the body that I've always wanted. I look at myself and I know that it's not perfect,
but I love my body.
I really suffered with my relationship with food from the age of about 14 to 24. I had anorexia, bulimia, binge eating pretty much every week, usually multiple times a week for those 10 years. Emotional eating, I thought about food 90% of the day. I honestly felt like I was a bit mad. And so that continued and it got worse. And I became more restrictive to the point that anything that I was eating, I would throw it up. I became very obsessive about the scale. If the scale went down, it was a good day. If the scale stayed the same, it was not a good day and I had to try harder. And if the scale went up, it was catastrophe.
I'm really anxious, but I'm also kind of excited. I'm hungry tonight. Would you like, don't know why I'm doing this. It's nerves. My family and I ate vegan dinners entirely for a week. If you've been following me for a little bit, you'll know that I'm in recovery from anorexia, and something I've always really struggled with throughout my illness is eating with my family and having the same thing as them. Consistently nourishing myself with such wholesome food really showed me that actually restricting my eating to cope doesn't solve anything, and it's so much better to give my body the fuel it's asking for.
My mum, when I saw her, she has always been a thin lady. She's just a slim lady. That's just her natural body type. Always been a really good eater, good appetite. I was very envious of that. And when I saw her when I arrived, she was even smaller. And I was like, Mum, how have you managed to do that? I asked, and she said, well, I haven't done it intentionally. I've not been trying to lose weight intentionally. I've just adopted a plant-based vegan diet. And it's just sort of, I've been eating loads, I've been eating absolute amounts of food, and the weight's just sort of dropped off unintentionally. And I was like, loads of food, you say?
I was a completely normal eater until the age of 14 when I became vegan. I cut out meat and dairy and all animal products basically overnight. So I started cooking for myself, I started food combining, and I started tracking the digestive times of my meals. I was making sure that I was eating super clean, whole natural foods. I was eating fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, tofu, all that stuff, and eating a good amount of food. But I was just so obsessed to the point where I had to make sure I was cooking my own food. I didn't want to tell my peers at high school what I was doing, so I really withdrew from my friends. I became kind of secretive. I had to put myself into this little controlled box.
Long story short, I come across the world of plant-based veganism, and through one lady that I saw on YouTube, there was a light bulb moment where she was talking about her binge eating recovery story, and she said that when you've been dieting for so long, it's normal to feel ravenously hungry. It's just normal. It's something called extreme hunger, is what she was saying, and it's totally normal. And actually, if you just eat, you guys have probably come across the all-in method, right? She was talking about that. Eat as much as you want, and basically your appetite will come down and your relationship with food will take care of itself. On a plant-based vegan diet, this lady was advocating for. Kind of understanding the premise, long story short, I tried it. That's exactly what I did. I went full raw vegan, but I can eat as much as I possibly want.
Quite quickly, I lost weight. I was already a normal, healthy weight, and I lost, I don't know how much, but anyways, I dropped down to about 95 pounds. That's about 30 pounds less than I am right now. I lost my period, my hair thinned, I was cold all the time, I had brain fog, I had actually, funny enough, had constipation despite eating all that fiber. And I just, honestly, I was so tired. I was pale. I did not feel well. But despite that, I kept going and kept going, boxing myself in further and further. I was making sure that I was eating fruit until noon for optimal cleansing. I was doing fruit fasting like 1 day a week for a cleanse, which was supposed to be a great thing.
Eating as much as I wanted, actually, it did start to balance my hunger, and the relief was, oh my gosh. In my mind, because this way of eating had been so much of a help to me, I was very, very set that this was the right way for me to be eating. At one point or another, that got the better of me and I started being more restrictive again, and the binge eating returned. And I was like, oh look, binge eating literally is just because, you know, it's just a result of extreme hunger. I thought that was the extent of it at the time. I was like, okay, don't restrict, go back to plant-based diet, whole foods, and you know, that'll be good enough. What I hadn't realized had happened at the time is I had developed orthorexia. So very, very strict, rather than being how much weight can I possibly lose? My diet has to be 100% perfect. And I was training as a nutritionist at the time. It just went on for a while. I very much advocated for a whole foods plant-based diet. I advocated it if you want to get over binge eating. It was purely coming from a place of wanting to control my weight and have a sense of control around my food.
About a year in, that's when my body started to rebel and I started to binge because my body wasn't getting what it needed. I just started to binge, and then so I was binging and restricting and kind of going back and forth, and it was just honestly an awful nightmare. So I had extreme food obsession, trying to be more pure, trying to be more perfect. I mean, I would binge on the strangest things like chickpeas and salsa, or like I used to make this Moroccan veggie stew, and I would like binge on that. Or I would make my healthy cookies or cakes or banana ice cream and binge on that stuff. And then I would need to have a cleanse, and so I would go into like a 3-day juice fast, only to come out of that and be ravenous and eat everything. And so, oh my goodness, this went on for a really, really long time. I struggled with orthorexia and food obsession for well over 15 years. I used to cry and I used to pray to God to make me just a normal eater again. The vegan diet was actually masking my disordered eating. Had I been fully honoring my body, I would not have remained on a vegan diet for 13 years because it was making me sick right from the beginning. But it was the disordered eating from it that made me continue on for so long. Like I was in so deep. And so stepping away from that and opening the diet up to all food groups was essential for my healing.
I went from full on being vegan but still having these disordered eating habits to just eating a lot of animal products. But because, I don't know, it's just like I mentioned, I've been in restriction mode for 6 years. Ever since I recovered, I never really recovered. I just got my period back, and yeah, my cheeks were fuller and my body was fuller, but I never really like actually nurtured my relationship with food. I just gained weight and everyone was like, oh, she's fine, her cycle's back, everything's good. Like, no, like I needed to get to the root of the problem.
When I was in 8th grade, my doctor told me that I was overweight. At that age, your mindset and your idea of yourself is so fragile that anything can mold it. At the beginning, it was just more like not intentionally eating less, but just trying to eat more healthy foods. So I wasn't really restricting. But then when I started like getting like praise, like, oh, you lost weight, so like good job, and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I need to like keep this going. I need to keep losing weight.
I was 14. I was not really overweight, but I felt like I needed to be thinner. I wanted to be skinnier. So I was already following what I thought was a pretty healthy diet according to the so-called experts, you know, eating low fat, whole grains, that sort of thing. And I wasn't getting the results I wanted. My family was starting to get very concerned. I started binging uncontrollably because I was just so hungry, and you sort of go on autopilot.
I come back from the wedding that weekend and I got on the scale and I saw that I had gained like 6 pounds, and I was like, what? There's no way I can go back to eating normal again. So that moment was kind of when the anorexia, restrictive kind of behaviors started to take over, and I think that's when my eating disorder really kind of started. June of 2017, I went vegan. So that was, I was in a better headspace. I remember trying to go vegan like earlier in that year, and it just wasn't working because I was doing it from a restrictive mindset, not like a ethical and intentional mindset.
My vegetarianism, I was doing it for like purely ethical reasons and environmental reasons. I did go vegetarian in the middle of my eating disorder. I wasn't well when I chose to go vegetarian, and it provided an excuse in terms of, it made me feel like, oh, I can cook my own meals now because my family won't eat vegetarian and I won't have to eat with them. I ate tuna pasta actually last weekend, and the only thoughts in my head while I was eating it were kind of panicked, and they felt a little bit like when I was breaking rules with my eating disorder. Because obviously I did all of that, or I thought I'd done all of it, but when I was eating it, my brain was going, oh my god, what are you doing, what are you doing? And then I was like, that's really interesting. I think maybe there's a little bit of eating disorder stuck with my vegetarianism, which I've always denied because, as I said, do have very strong feelings about the environment and ethics and morals and stuff.
Although I wasn't intentionally restricting like I had previously in 2016, before I first started recovery, I was losing weight because I wasn't properly nourishing my body. And then again, all of those thoughts started coming back. It made it super easy for the negative feelings to arise, and then I was experiencing all the symptoms again. I was slipping back into that mindset, and that's when the binge and restricting cycle came back again. On top of the excessive exercise, it was only a matter of time before I ended up going to treatment. I actually had just finished the race with my mom, and I had gotten blood tests done a couple weeks later because my doctor was pretty concerned, and we got the results back, and it said that my protein level was very, very low, and if I didn't do something, I would have to go to the hospital.
There's a lot of symptoms that people will not tell you that will happen to you, most likely if you're severely deprived of animal products. Why I tell you about how I was raised and what I was fed as I was growing up is because my storages of animal products were already not very good. I decided to get certified by the ISSA as a personal trainer, and I did also nutrition specialist, which like I hold a diploma for that. So I knew a lot about nutrition. Well, the book smart stuff that they teach you. But at that very particular gym, there was a very big boom of vegans at that point. So they had glowing skin, they looked energetic, and they really spoke a lot about veganism and the health benefits and the detox. And in my head, I'm like, maybe I am toxic. Maybe I'm just eating junk food. I watched a lot of like those documentaries where they really show animal abuse. If you're familiar with my channel, you probably know I love animals. So after watching all this and really getting sucked into the propaganda, and it is really a propaganda, I decided just to go vegan overnight. I trashed everything in my fridge that was non-vegan. I really went hardcore.
And kind of found veganism by chance at that point in time because a friend of mine was doing it. He showed me one of their famous documentaries that really sold it to me as being the ultimate way to be healthy, be thin, save the animals, save the environment. So pretty much overnight, decided to go vegan.
I bought all these grains. I had mason jars of grains and of legumes. But after a couple months in, I started to notice energy loss, weight loss. My muscles went down. My weight, I don't know, was just getting like fat skinny, you know. Also at the same time, simultaneously, I had crazy digestive issues. Not only do I not have a gallbladder, but now my intestines started swelling up because of the amount of fiber I was intaking. And these damn beans, like, they bloat you. They gave me so much gas. And the more I was telling to these vegan people, listen, something's not right. They're like, you're detoxing. You should eat more beans.
Everyone in the vegan community, no matter how you do veganism, when you ultimately fail at it, they will tell you that you did it wrong. So they all disagree on the right way to do it, but the only thing they do agree on is if you failed, it's because you did it wrong. It's because, oh, it was your eating disorder that caused these problems. That's what it was. And you're just, you know, blaming it on veganism, but that's not what it was.
Oftentimes they say eating disorders start in the mind. Well, my eating disorder started in the body because my body was done digesting this crap. And I think it's called orthorexia, when you try to eat so healthy that you're actually killing yourself doing it. I was trying to eat so healthy, book smart, that my health was decreasing by the day. And this is when I developed anorexia bulimia. Not because I wanted to, but because my body started refusing these type of foods. It categorically began refusing all that intake of fiber and all these legumes. And basically how it would go with anorexia bulimia is some days I would just want to have a good day and not be bloated and crap all day, and I would just stop eating. On those days I would only just eat like a little bit of fruits and things like that. So I'd basically be starving myself for some days. And some days when I was so hungry I couldn't do it anymore, I started binge eating. And at first it was on health foods. I would just like binge eat, but my body refused those foods. All these beans were just not agreeing with me. You know, all this rice, all this just fiber. I wanted to eat. I was so starving. I'd eat huge quantities and then I'd just puke it out. It would just come out, like whether I wanted it or not, it would just come out. And then the next step is that it wouldn't come out the other end. I would get like so constipated I needed to take 20 diuretic pills. So it's a vicious cycle of it's coming out one way but not the other way.
I was but a shell of myself by the end of all that.
And for me, it was really important to be honest with myself and put my health as my #1 priority, because without health, we don't have anything.
I'm trying to be very kind and gentle with myself because it's, like I said, it's gonna be a process of just letting my body do what it needs to do. Getting back to just trusting that my body is gonna eat what it needs, it's gonna crave what it needs, and it's really just a game of trust.
A game of trust.